I'm Erin Burnett in Tel Aviv, where sirens have been going off tonight a few times, coming hours after Israel said it launched a broad-scale wave of strikes against Iranian infrastructure. Joining me now is the president of the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs, Dan Diker, also former Secretary General of the World Jewish Congress. So, Dan, I appreciate your time. I want to just ask you a couple things here, but first let's just start with, we have had a couple of rounds of sirens and incoming missiles tonight after what had been a quieter day today, at least in the afternoon, than yesterday. But the last ones that we heard, where we heard that staccato ongoing, sort of like the nonstop rumbling, as I said, to describe to viewers the incredible onslaught at the end of a fireworks show. That's what it sounded like. What did you hear that, and what does that mean to you? It's different than what we had heard, Nick and I were saying the other day.
A violent staccato, if you will, of interceptors and missiles. Israel has had a phenomenal record this time around of intercepting, more than 99% of all of the IRGC ballistic missiles and killer drones fired in our direction, as well as the Iranian regime Hezbollah, and I emphasize that it is the Iranian regime's Hezbollah in Lebanon firing rockets. They still have thousands of rockets in their inventory towards Israel, and it's created hell for people in the north. But again, more than 99% have been intercepted, and what it really shows, Aaron, is that the Iranian regime is in deep trouble, because they would fire whatever they had, and we're only getting dribs and drabs. As fatal as individual missiles can be, it's been seriously degraded, their ballistic missile capability.
That certainly appears to be the case. Obviously, there are questions about their hypersonic missiles and whether any of that was strategic, as opposed to they're not able to, that they may have saved some. And I know there's some questions about that, even in the context of the incredible degrading that's happened. In that context, I want to ask you about what we're understanding. Ali Larajani, who is runs the National Security Council and had in many ways been the public and diplomatic face of this regime for quite some time prior to this. Okay, so he is a voice of consistency. He has not been killed. He is there. He's spoken out. The Tasnim State News Agency has part of what he said, and I'm not sure if this is all of it, so let's just talk about part of what we know he has just said, which is that he is going after the United States, saying that, the U.S. said that there was going to be defections, and there haven't been. They said the Kurds were going to rise up, and they haven't. They're striking our civilians. And then he says this sentence: Trump's recent threats to target ordinary people represent the peak of military malice that has been defeated on the battlefield and now seeks to avenge its military defeats by shedding the blood of children and women. There's a lot in there, but there's also a lot not in there.
Absolutely.
There isn't a death to America, we're going to blow you to smithereens, we will never surrender. At least in what we're looking at here. Now, I don't know everything that we don't know right now, but in this, I don't hear that.
You made a very important distinction here, Aaron, that has to be unpacked, and that is, on the one hand, Ali Larajani is in a desperate situation. He knows he's being targeted by U.S. and Israel. He knows also that he disagrees, and this is just reported this evening. He actually disagreed and opposed the messages from the Iranian President Pezeshkian and others at COM who have called for cessation of shooting at neighbors, for a little bit of trying to convey the message that the Iranian regime is stepping back. And he's saying, no, it's not the case, that the Iranian regime will continue.
So you see this as pushing for more, not for restraint.
And to try to, he's targeting two audiences. To the American people, he's talking about human rights, trying to accuse the United States of targeting children in this terribly tragic and mistaken hit on a school, even though, we know that the United States and Israel only, as a function of their moral and strategic mandate, only target regime assets and infrastructures, which is when the smoke clears, the American people will see exactly what has been destroyed.
Although I will just interject and say, that may be true that they target that, but when it's next to a police station and they're using those powerful bombs, Arkady Polglaze has shown, that can kill within 1,000 feet, and you have a hospital 100 feet away.
That's right. Well, the question is,
problem.
Why does the regime stick themselves right next to hospitals? It's exactly what the Iranian regime, Hamas, does in Gaza. Why do they stick themselves in the middle of civilian population? That's a war crime, and they do that. They know.
But aren't there FBI buildings near hospitals and
yeah, but
I mean, I'm just saying, isn't this part of this just the way a normal society would build itself?
Look, it's very clear the Iranian regime has knowingly attacking neighbors, whether it's with Arab neighbors, the United States, Israel, which they've been doing for years, they put themselves in the middle of civilian populations on purpose, because according to anyone who knows the basics of international law, proportionality, you can, and distinction, you can target those
Do you think,
compounds.
Dan, that Ali Larajani is positioned to be a figure that would be both acceptable to the IRGC and to an ongoing regime, if that is where this is going, and to the United States? Maybe not to Israel. Maybe not to Israel, I understand, but to the United States. Is that what he's positioning himself to be? Is that conceivable to you?
It's conceivable. What Ali Larajani has done in the text that you've read now, Erin, is to say to the Iranian people, look, the United States and Israel are trying to decentralize, to fractionalize, to divide up Iran. Now, that's an important message. Why? Because even the Iranian opposition from the left to the right, those who support Pahlavi and those who are far more on the left and not Marxists, say one thing: we want a united Iran. And therefore, they understand that that message that they're trying to convey to the American people and to the Iranian people are saying the regime is your best option. Now, the other important point here is President Trump has said total surrender. Now, he's not the first president to say total surrender.
Right.
If you remember, Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Churchill said together at Casablanca in the Second World War, they called for the total surrender of Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. So there is a history here, and the only way the Iranian regime will be defeated is if there is total surrender. And I think we should listen to what Steve Witkoff said just about 48 hours ago is very, very telling. Publicly, he said, we were deceived time and time again. They had no intention of coming to a deal with us, to him and Kushner. And in fact, there was no other choice but because there was an imminent threat. And in fact, it was the Iranian Foreign Minister Arachi who told Steve Witkoff, we have enough enriched uranium in a matter of weeks to put together 11 nuclear devices. Now, can you imagine what would happen to the world, not only the United States, with an Iranian regime that is nuclearized, that has already mass murdered tens of thousands of its own people?
I'm also thinking total surrender, of course, in World War II with Japan was, instigated by Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So, it's a very, very tenuous moment that we're in. Dan, thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and please stay with us here on CNN.